Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the PPRTA to order. And with that, I'd like to establish a quorum. I'll look at Jared to see if I think we do. I'm counting around the room. And yeah, we have a quorum. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Plus I know Carrie's right there. So yes, establish a quorum. I'll move along to item number 2, approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Yolanda, move to approve the agenda.
All right.
Second, John Graham.
So Director Avila and Director Graham seconds. And with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any disapprove? I hear none. It's approved. Moving on to item number 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. I'll look to Jared to see if there's anybody online that we can see. I can't really tell if there's anybody up there raising their hands. I look to the audience. I see none. All right. I hear none. With that, I will move along then to item number 4, resolution of appreciation for the town of Rama Director Dennis Carpenter. And with that, Dennis, I would ask you to please come forward. We're going to make you stand up here while I read the resolution. Right there is fine, and I'll come up and present you as soon as I'll read the resolution first, and then I'll come up and present you with your helmet. And all right. Resolution by the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to town of Rama Director Dennis Carpenter, Mayor, June 14th, 2023. Whereas the town of Rama is a member government of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and whereas town of Rama Director Dennis Carpenter served as town of Rama Mayor from April 2015 until May of 2023, when he served as the director from the town of Rama on the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors, and whereas town of Rama Director Dennis Carpenter has served the citizens of the town of Rama and the Pikes Peak region with distinction. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge their deepest gratitude to town of Rama Director Dennis Carpenter for his commitment to regional transportation planning and projects, for his wise counsel, and for his dedication to the advancement of the transportation projects of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority this 14th day of June, 2023 at Colorado Springs, Colorado. Randy Helms, Chair, Board of Directors. You want to come up here, both?
I move approval.
I'll
second.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Request a motion. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? It's approved. All right. So that we're going to make you wear a helmet. And you're going to get a picture. I'll hand that to you. You step in between us here. Slide down over here. There you go. Cheeseburger. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you get to have that one.
Short speech.
Yes.
I think I got it on. I do. I'll probably miss coming to these meetings. I've really enjoyed it. I was, like you said, on that for so many years, and I was on the CAT before that. I've still got my finger in the pot out there at Rama being the maintenance guy, so I can still see what's going on and keep track of you guys, make sure you're not spending too much money. And keep those promises made that you said in the beginning, promises made, promises kept.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, moving right along to item number 5. We're looking to approval of the minutes from the May 10th, 2023 meeting. I assume everyone's had a chance to look at the minutes. Are there any questions? I see and hear none. Request a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second John Graham.
So we have Director Williams and Director Graham for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion is approved for the minutes. Item number 6, presentation of the 2022 audit. All right. We have our guest today, and I think he's handed out. Yeah, we just got it, so we haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So before he starts, I'll have you introduce yourself up there in a minute, but before he starts, so again, we all just got the audit. So there is we can approve it today, or we don't have to approve it. We can take it back with us and approve it on the next meeting. So I'll leave that up to discussion after his briefing. Sir,
Yeah.
Podium's yours.
Okay, thank you. My name's Kyle Logan. I'm the owner of Logan and Associates, the independent auditors for the authorities. Presentation of today is the December 31st, 2022 annual financial statement audit. And I'll start off by talking about the process a little bit. So we pick samples of primarily of disbursements and make sure that, money that's being spent by the RTA has proper approvals, proper support, and is being recorded in the accounting records properly. We also really look at the capital projects expenditures as well and compare them to the ballot approvals to make sure that the expenditures that are being charged are the ones that have been approved by the voters in the authorities area. We also confirm bank and investment balances with the financial institutions to make sure that what they are showing as being reported by the banks is what's being recorded in the accounting records. We verify the sales tax, your significant revenue with the state to make sure that all the revenues that are being recorded and reported in the accounting records are what the state says that they pay to the authority. We verify the transit revenues that have been collected from the city. And again, make sure that those are reasonable and properly recorded. And then we spend some time doing like analytical type testing, comparing 2022 balances with 2021 and talking with Lisa and Rick as far as why we've had changes between years. Okay. And so after we do all that, then that gives me a level of comfort in order to issue an opinion. And so following the table of contents is an independent auditor's report. And in that 3-page or 2-page report, the most important paragraph is the very first section there, the opinions paragraph. And so for the year ended December 31st, 2022, the authority received an unmodified opinion. What that means in layman's terms, that's a clean opinion. What that tells you as a board, that tells you that all the financial statement numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures in this document are fairly stated and materially correct as of December 31st, 2022. Okay. So following the independent auditor's report is the management's discussion and analysis, or the MD&A. And this is more of a written narrative of activities that have happened over the past year, also comparing 2022 with 2021 and significant changes there. Then following the MD&A, we have the basic financial statements. And so there's 2 types of financial statements there. The pages 1 and 2, we refer to those as the government-wide financial statements, and pages 3 and 4, those are the fund financial statements. Now with the authority, you guys really don't have any changes or differences in the 2 types of reporting on these 4 pages. So I'll just kind of give you highlights. Pages 1 and 3 are pretty much the same. This is a statement of financial position and the governmental funds balance sheet. So this is like a snapshot picture at December 31st of all the authority's assets, its liabilities or claims against those assets, and its net position or net worth. And so your total assets, 325.4 million. That's about a 41.4 million increase over 2021. It's about a 15% increase. And majority of that increase is in your cash and investments. And so your cash and investments of 297.8 million, that makes up about 92% of your assets. The other 8% is made up of the accounts receivable, which primarily that is the sales taxes that have been collected and remitted to the state. And then the state turns around and remits that to the authority. So we have about a 2-month lag there as far as taxes when they're collected to the point that they get received by the authority. Okay. And so your accounts receivable, again, 27.6 million. That's about a $1.4 million increase over last year. Okay. Your total liabilities, this is your accounts payable. So this is primarily the amounts that are owed to vendors at the end of December for work that they performed that's not paid until 2023. And so that's about 18.4 million, a slight increase over last year, about $500,000. So again, that will fluctuate from year to year depending on projects that are going on and where we're at in the phase of those projects. And then the last part, the net position or fund balance, 306.9 million. Again, that's about a $41 million increase over last year. So it's a 15% increase in your net position or your net worth. And that's primarily divvied up into 2 categories, restricted and unrestricted. Well, the majority of the money, just because of the nature of the authority, is restricted for either capital projects, either maintenance or transit. Okay. And then also we have in there the required Tabor reserve amount. So the restricted about 305.8 million, and then the unrestricted is about 1.1 million. And so again, the unrestricted, no strings attached. The board can, just determine what to do with that if they so choose. Okay. And so a lot of times the unrestricted is used to kind of cover the administrative part of the authority's budget. So that kind of covers the statement of financial position or the balance sheet. Pages 2 and 4, this is the statement of activities and statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. That's primarily your income statement. And so it starts out at the top of it with your expenses. And so shows the expenses in the 4 categories: your capital, your maintenance, transit, and administrative. So your expenses, 124.2 million. That's about a $35.4 million increase over last year. It's about 40% increase. And again, your expenses are going to fluctuate from year to year, depending on what phase you're in with these projects that are going, that are happening. And so the past few years, we've been doing a lot of design and engineering work. Okay. There were a few construction projects going on, but nothing significant. And so one thing to think about, that's why we have such a large fund balance, is because you've been collecting these sales taxes for once these projects get up and running, you've got the money to pay for them. Okay. And so your capital expenditures, they were increased about 17.5 million. Again, a few construction projects, but a lot of design going on. Your maintenance was up about 9.2 million. 2 significant categories there were your bridge maintenance projects and then also resurfacing projects. Transit, 7.9 million. We're kind of post-COVID now. Things are starting to ramp up again. So we're kind of getting back to the service that was happening before COVID. So, and then the administrative, about 848,000 over last year. That's primarily related to to the ballot question for the RTA number 3 renewal. So, okay. So that kind of covers the expenses, your revenues. Again, significant amount, sales and use taxes, 156 million there. That's about a 6% increase over last year. Your investment income, this is your biggest increase, and this is what we like to see. You're at 5.4 million. That's about a 5.1 million increase over prior years. So the interest rates are finally getting more favorable. And so hopefully we'll continue to see that increase. Okay. And then the transit revenue, it's at 3 million, about 814,000 or 37% increase over last year. So again, as post-COVID and things start happening, we'll continue to see those revenues bump up. And then we have a line in there, cost share reimbursement. Well, these are like reimbursed expenditures from either the participating governments or from other outside parties. So we just show that there. 2021, we had a significant amount of reimbursements, but 2022 there weren't very many. Primarily, not a lot of projects going on as far as construction. So that comes down with a change in net position or your net income for the year, 41 million, increased about 15% over of your net position or fund balance over last year. Okay. So after the financial statements are the footnotes, and basically the accounting standards require certain information to be included that either supports these numbers up here in the financial statements or just provides more explanation of the financial statements. And so pages 5 through 8, this is your summary of significant accounting policies. And a lot of this is very similar to other entities that are the same nature of the authority. Then pages 9 through 10, this is your cash and investments, shows you where the cash deposits are held as well as your investments. And you basically have 297.4 million in the Colo Trust. And so that's why you're earning such a large percent. Okay. And then the last page there, page 11, this is a Tabor footnote, required disclosure, and then also talks about the admin services with the area council of governments. Okay. And then the last page there is the budgetary comparison schedule. And so each year in December, the authority adopts a budget for the upcoming year. And so part of state statute is that you're not allowed to spend more than you expect to or more than you appropriate. And so that's part of the purpose of this being included in the financial statements. And that's one thing we look at when we're performing the audit. How did your actual expenditures come in compared to what you planned or what your budget was? So, and each year over the past several years, because we've been in the design phases, you spent well below what you intended to. So again, no issues there with the looking at the budget. And the last page there just explains a little more about the budget process that the authority goes through. Okay. Any questions on the financial statements before I talk about the management letter?
All right. Any directors with questions?
Okay.
No, sir. Go ahead.
All right. So then this other document, our professional standards as your auditor require us to communicate certain things to you, the governing board of the authority. And so the first page there talks about my responsibility as your auditor and what I'm to follow. And then on the next pages, we talk about different things. If there were significant accounting estimates in the financials, if we had any changes in the accounting policies, which there were none. We did make some audit adjustments, but again, nothing significant enough that would cause me to change my opinion on the financials. So that's good. If there were any disagreements or consultations with independent accountants, well, if there would have been disagreements, you would have heard from me before today. So that's always a good thing. So This letter is also used as a tool for us to, as we're, testing the controls, like over your cash disbursements and revenues. If there were areas for improvement or weaknesses in the controls, we would put that in this letter. And the fact that there isn't anything, what that tells you as a board, that's good news. And that tells you that policies and procedures that have been put in place by this board and previous boards are being followed by staff and management. And it also tells you that you have good accounting policies and procedures in order to provide good, sound financial reporting. So that's good. Okay. And finally, I want to thank Lisa and Rick for their help and their time. They have the hard part, and especially this being Lisa's first year of going through this. I see she's still here, so we didn't run her off, so that's good. But really, I do appreciate their help because they make this whole audit process for us to go smooth. And so thank you for your help. And that's all I have. Again, as you're going through this, if you come up with questions after today, let Lisa know. She can get in contact with me and I'll find you an answer. Okay.
Thank you very much. So it's open to the board, of course, questions. And my question to the board is this good enough that we vote today, or do we want to take it back and vote a month from now when we come back for our July meeting? And I'm open for discussions on that. Anyone? Yes, Vice Chair.
I'll just say, this is an acceptance, not necessarily an approval. I think that I would be confident in moving to accept this because we have seen all of the information and I don't see any other deficit that we have
Any
in
reason not
terms
to
of
accept it.
accepting it. Yes.
I will ask, so anyone else have any comments? I don't see any. Any other comments or?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, yes.
If there's no hurry to approve this, I guess I would recommend taking a month and taking action next month and giving us a chance to kind of digest the report. But I don't have any apprehension about this. I'm pretty confident it's a clean report. It just kind of gives us a little time for due diligence.
Okay, that's one. So we've had two recommendations, one to accept it and one to delay. So that's let me think about how we want to proceed with that.
I would just say, in terms of an acceptance or a rejection, I guess I'm not sure. Typically, anytime that I've been involved in a report where we're accepting a report, it's more of, yes, we received the report. And I just don't know what and maybe you could, share, what you would be
Mayor.
looking for or something that would, I have no
Cause us
reason
not to
to
accept
not
it
say
today.
if we want to move forward. I don't have a huge objection to that. I'm just curious what you would be looking for in order to get to an accept that we didn't have today, just my understanding of what you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think your position is entirely reasonable in the context of where we're at in the history we have. It seems to me that to give ourselves the opportunity to do the due diligence and to inform ourselves as opposed to just get it and then, I guess from the outside world in the interest of transparency, it looks a little bit like we're rubber stamping things in uncritically. I think there's been a lot of prudence throughout the whole year. That's what we expect. And I think that's what this reflects. But I do think giving the directors some time to go over things, possibly sleep on it and ask any questions that might come up. I think that's reasonable.
I have no objection. I'm
Okay.
curious
Yeah.
what.
Sure. Okay, so I'll put it this, and I'll ask both our attorney and Rick, Jennifer, if so if we wanted to not, so on the agenda, we have it as accepting. Do I need to have a motion to postpone the acceptance? Would that be the appropriate?
I think you'd just be tabling it to next month.
Okay.
From a timing standpoint, the audit does need to be filed by the end of July with the Office of the State Auditor. So we have time to wait until July. The direction from the board would really be to accept the report and direct the filing with the state auditor's office. So if the board's delaying that until July, that still works with the timing.
so we don't have to vote to delay it. I guess that's my question.
We have historically voted motion second to table.
Okay, to table.
Next
Got it. I'm with you. And I think, Mayor, did you have? Nope. All right. I think I'll ask for a motion to table.
I just have one question.
Oh, yes, Director Williams.
And I'm fine tabling it for a month. I just know that we had a little bit of a race to make sure we had all three commissioners here today. How is everybody's schedule freed up for next month? Because it is a clean audit. And I'm very happy about that. I just want to make sure we don't get ourselves into trouble. I know the commissioners are in town, so we don't have NACO that week. So I think we might be okay to make sure we have three commissioners here. So as long as we're okay, we have a quorum next month. I'm fine tabling it.
When's the next meeting?
What's the date of the
Uh,
July meeting? July 12th.
Yeah,
I would move that we table this item until next month. We act on it then.
And I'll second that, Councilman Donaldson.
All right, I have a motion and a second to table the audit till the month of July. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion passes. We will table till next month. Thank you. Yes, of course. Absolutely.
This is truly a legitimate question, like I said, because generally I think of like accepting the report as getting it. So maybe our attorney or someone else would say, like, what would be grounds for a rejection of the audit?
If any of the members of the board or your staff found something they thought was inaccurate, if we had revisions to be made to the notes, to the financial statements, sometimes there's dates that are caught that are wrong, as there's direction to go back and revise those. Those would be the type of things. I mean, for the most part, the board members aren't going to be re-auditing the audit, right? So it'd be sort of those sort of factual things that you realize are wrong.
Thank you.
and really, I'm okay just with postponing it so that we have time to read through it. And I would like to congratulate Rick and Lisa on a good job that they
Yes.
have done. So it's no reflection on your performance. It's just we want at least some time to digest it.
I concur wholeheartedly with that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, board, next up is item number 7, Citizens Advisory Committee Report, and Jim is up.
Good afternoon, Jim Godfrey, Chair of the CAC. So just, I'll go over this as quickly as I can and highlight this stuff, just so you know, we didn't break our meeting up until about 4:30 last week, so I'll try to be a little quicker for this one. So we looked at the mid-year budget amendment that was presented, and you'll see today, and we recommend approval as presented for that. The city of Colorado Springs, I had a line item transfer, no issues with the city's proposed line item transfer, and we recommend approval of that as well. City had 11 contracts, same thing. A lot of them were annual maintenance contracts or equipment supply kind of things, and we had no issues with any of those. County had one having to do with 105. We recommend approval of the county's request as well. Manitou had one, the same. We recommend approval of that. The big issue was the review of the IGA with Copper Ridge Metropolitan District for the extension of Powers Boulevard. We spent about an hour and 45 minutes on this discussion, so I will summarize for you. The final vote was 14-3. We had 17 members present, and so the vote was 14-3. A lot of discussion, and it boiled down to basically a couple of issues. One was the project amount and what we were obligated or committed to for funding. There were some numbers that were used in the IGA that, and also a spreadsheet that was handed out in terms of reimbursements that had some numbers that weren't in the IGA. And there was some confusion over that. So let me try to explain. So back when we were doing the project list for RTA 3, this project was, and Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, was estimated at around 70 million or something like that.
Well, the project was actually estimated at 140 million,
140.
but the city's portion that we carried for RTA 3 funding was 72 million and the county's was
Okay.
31 million.
All right, thank you. That was the city's portion. So there was some question about this. So in the IGA, there's a 7340 something and $103 million was the cap on the project. And the word cap, I'll come back to, but that was the number that is in the IGA. And then there is additional language that talks about a Mark Scheffel transfer option. So in RTA 3, there's funding for the completion of the safety improvements on Mark Scheffel. And the city has moved forward on that and just doing some of that now out of traffic safety and intersection improvement program funds. And so the money that is that is designated for RTA 3 will no longer be needed. And so there is a potential that money that is designated in their planning budget to be transferred to this project, $18.5 million that would be available for transfer to this project. Not committed, would possibly be available based on discussion and vote. Then there was a second $18.5 million that.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
Jim, I think Director Gonzalez has a question.
All right, so the Mark Scheffel money, is that the money we voted on just a couple months ago? The upgrades?
No, it's in RTA 3.
Right, but you're saying it's being paid for
Right.
and now it's freeing that money up. How's it being free? Is the money supposed to be being just front loaded? It would not be freed up.
Some of this I might be able to answer better when we get to this item on your agenda today. I can walk you through that in more detail, but it's just, but you're right. We're paying for Mark Scheffel now. And it gives us the ability to provide some additional monies for powers. And I can explain that in more detail when we get to that item.
But my biggest concern, and Gail answered that and was part of the discussion, was we're not taking anything away from Mark Scheffel to delay the completion of that project. And that was the big point, that was that by proposing this here, we weren't affecting the completion of the safety improvements that are being done on Mark Scheffel right now and scheduled for the next year or so. So Gail confirmed that. And that was a big point that I had in reading this thing for the first time. Then there was a second $18.5 million that was associated with RTA 2 B list projects, that the extension of powers is a RTA 2 B list project. If this board made the decision that that was the only priority, there was potentially $18.5 million of RTA 2 money that could also be put towards the powers extensions through Copper Ridge's IGA. So when you look at the 103, the 218.5s, we're up to $140 million. And it took Gail a while and discussions to get everybody on the same page about what that was. That so if I'm, and correct me, Jennifer, if I'm wrong, right now, the cap on the project is $103 million. Is that correct? Well, she's saying yes, you're saying no.
My reading of the agreement is that the amount obligated is $103 million with an option for 2 additional funding sources of up to 18.5, one from PPRTA 2, one from the reallocation of funds for that we're discussing here from PPRTA 3.
Okay. So once we got through that math and a better understanding of that, things went a little easier in terms of discussions. So we were concerned about, again, that we weren't putting the completion of Mark Shuffle in jeopardy. And then, of course, when we get to that point, if everyone does come to fully funded agreement on A-list projects and we decide to go to the B list, then the decision is, does everything go to this project or does other people's projects get done? And that is a future decision. So there's no commitment necessarily for that 18.5 million. But that would be the number that could potentially be available to be put towards this. Okay. The other question that was brought up was, as Copper Ridge starts this work, they're going to start doing this work before they get reimbursed. They're going to go ahead and get started. And then at a point in time with RTA 3 or prior, they will submit invoices but they're going to be doing work prior to us reimbursing them. So the question was, how does this get audited to make sure that our reimbursements for the expenses that they've incurred are included and covered by our audit and make sure that they're accounted for? And Gail assured us that the city would do that as they're part of their invoicing. Approval of invoices would come through them. They would do that prior to submitting them to the RTA. And Lisa agreed with that and everything. Everybody was okay with that question. Then the other big sticking point was worst case scenario. If Copper Ridge goes out of business, goes belly up, do we end up with a road to nowhere? And who would take it over if something would go wrong with them? And the answer was that the city and county would take that over and manage it just like they would any other project that we have, and just take over management control of that project. And we'd cut out those people. We would still have work done by them. And they would still, I assume, get reimbursed for the expenses they have occurred, but that the active management of the project would no longer be by them. It would be by city and county, led by city. Did I say that correctly, Gail?
Be led by the city.
By the city. Okay. So that was the other big sticking point, and we got hung up on some things about that, and just making sure that that was covered. And 2 of the 3 no votes had to do with those 2 issues: the funding and the control of the project in a worst case scenario. It was pointed out by one of the members that the value of starting this now versus waiting until the flow of RTA 3 money starts coming in, which was probably March or so of 25, that by starting it now using this methodology through the IGA and Copper Ridge, that we're getting the time value of money. We're getting the use of money now at a lower rate, potentially lower cost than we would be getting in 25. And so that was a positive that came out of the discussion. So in the end, like I said, we have a 14-3 vote. The other vote, a negative, was another vote was concern about bonding and bonds, which really doesn't have anything to do with the IGA other than that's the source that they're using to get money to initially fund and get this started and pay back. So we did go over the payback schedule, and I think that you guys have a copy of this. That's a payback schedule over 10 years, and the not to exceed amount per year. They'll be reimbursed as they submit invoices. But the amounts or not to exceed annual amount for reimbursement. So I'll let Gail get into that, but in the end, we recommend approval of this IGA as presented to us on that subject. All right. Also from the city was a letter of support for funding commitment for a DCIP grant application. We recommend approval of that. We also reviewed Fountain's request to join the PPRTA, and we make a positive recommendation to approve that. Following that was on our schedule a discussion of Manitou and some of the issues that they might have. We did not get into that discussion. We didn't know the details, and the Manitou reps had left by this point in time, and so we didn't have any discussion. Just note that we made mention that and I think that issue, I happened to attend with Rick and Andy to the Manitou City Council meeting last night, and I think that's going to be covered. And so Mayor Graham, you can comment on that if you need to, but.
Yeah, I believe that's agenda item 11A. So
Yeah.
we'll get to it a little later on, but thank you. We appreciate your attendance.
No problem. And then the last item was draft board policy number 33. And policy 33 was designed by your request. As a CAC, take a look at a policy for any future arrangements like the Copper Ridge arrangement. This is a total different process than what we've done in the past. It's new. And so there's some concerns and issues. We didn't feel like the consensus was to delay submitting to you a recommendation on policy until after this discussion today by you, and that we would take this up next month. So we do not have a recommendation on a draft policy for board policy 33 for you. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
All right, any directors, any questions? I don't see any. I think I can say that the CAC earned their pay this last week without any doubt.
We broke up just in time because it was about time for happy hour, and but we got over before 4:30, and so.
Okay, with that said, I'm asking for a motion to approve the CAC committee report.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
we have both a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I see none. With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? I do not see any. With that, the motion approves. Thank you, Jim, for a very thorough report. Okay, next up, item number 8, our monthly financial report, 8A, the monthly report with Lisa. You get to come up and stand at the podium this time.
Technical issues here. Okay. For the monthly, I'm reporting April of 2023. Our actual receipts was $12,121,153. So that's actually below budget for that month by $290,296. So January through March was pretty good. We were above budget on those. So for the year to date, we're still 1.2 million over. Which if we continue to have months where we're not meeting budget, that at least some of that could get absorbed in what we've collected over. And if we compare April of this year to April of last year, we collected $803,804 below what we did last year. So that's a 6.2% difference. So that kind of ties into the amendment because I did not want to increase the sales and use tax portion of the budget. Because we have been talking about this potential economic downturn for a few months, and I think now this is really the first time we've seen evidence of it. But we did have about 5.8 million of carryover from last year, which was 5.1 million of that was just our interest revenue that was above budget. And then I added another 8 million for interest revenue instead of doing sales and use tax. Anyone have any questions on either of those?
Okay, I would just like to state for the record, if everyone can tell Wayne, my Amazon purchases have declined.
It's all
Okay, if we could just, next time we see him, let's confirm that.
800,000 decline. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yes, I will help you out on that.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, go ahead.
I
Okay,
think
with
that's
that, that's just information and then on to the amendment.
Yeah, so that's I guess just the highlights of the amendment was that we're releasing in total with the carryover and the additional revenue. I think it comes out to like 13.8 million of new funds. And did we want to have everyone present what they're using those funds for, or?
I think it's in the report. Anyone in particular? Or do we just want to accept the 23?
I would just rather move to set the date for next month to approve the amendment,
Okay.
unless anyone has any particular questions.
All right, that's a motion.
I move to
Yes,
set the date
yes.
for the public hearing as in July on the second Wednesday.
Okay, do I hear a second? Got a second from Director Gonzalez. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. The motion passes.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you, Lisa. All right, up next, item 9, 2023 capital maintenance and public transportation contracts. 9A, City of Colorado Springs. Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Chair, Gail Sturdivant, City of Colorado Springs, City Engineer and Deputy Public Works Director. This is a line item transfer that would remove some funding from the Black Forest Road project and from the Stapleton Briargate study and put that all towards the Circle Drive Bridge project. Just to give you a highlight in that area. For Black Forest Road, we are moving 1.5 million from the project contingencies. When we do so, we will still have 1.6 million in ARPA funds plus just under another million, so almost $2.6 million of it available. You will see a larger change order coming in the next couple months for some tributary work that's required as part of that project, but we feel there's sufficient funds to complete that tributary work and other contingencies in the project to see that through construction. On the Stapleton Briargate project, that is complete. That was a county-led project. The city has $679,946 remaining in that. So we're pulling that out and putting that towards Circle Drive Bridge. So with both these line item transfers, we would be adding $2,179,946 to the Circle Drive Bridge project. And I'm available for questions.
I'm looking at the directors. I'm happy. I'm very good with that. Coming out of the Black Forest Road area, don't have any issues with that. And I think Stapleton Briargate is also.
That is
in my area.
complete.
Okay, good. Any concerns or issues with the transfer? Okay. Anyone? I see none. I'll ask for a motion to approve the transfer.
So moved.
Director Donaldson.
Second.
Second. Yep, 2 seconds. And with that, any more discussion? I see none. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Motion for the transfer passes. Thank you. All right. Still up, City of Colorado Springs for 9 Bravo.
Yes, as the CAC chairman mentioned, we have 11 contracts for the board's consideration today. The first 2 are going to be for the Mark Shuffle Road improvements that we're advancing between North Carefree and Dublin Boulevard. I'm using funds through the the traffic programs, roadway safety and operations, and signal and intersection improvements programs. This first one is for the larger construction package that would complete construction of the northbound lanes between North Carefree up to Tamlin, and then redoing that Barnes intersection. We've been going through a construction management general contractor or CMCG process with our selected construction contractor Kramer. And that we have negotiated this task order with an up to value of $15,033,535.21. Just as a reminder, we did go through an RFP process to get that contractor. We had 6 respondents and Kramer was deemed to be the best value for us. I'll introduce the second contract also related to Mark Schiffer Road. This is for Wilson and Company to provide construction management, inspection and materials testing services in the amount of $1,324,780. Are there any questions related to those 2 contracts?
I don't see anyone, Gil.
I'll move on. I can always circle back if something comes to mind. Contracts 3 and 4 are going to be for the Academy Boulevard project between Fountain and Milton Proby Parkway. This is what we refer to as that south segment of that project, since we went through an RFP process for construction contractors. Just as a reminder, we had 3 respondents. We did select Ames Construction. When we went to bidding at the time, the north phase was at 100%. The south phase, which we're talking about, was at 90%. What this change order reflects is completion of those plans between 90 and 100%, finalizing those quantities, responding to some additional drainage requirements, electrical, some subsurface investigation, and a water line. This change order results in $2,985,957. I will point out, just as a reminder, that this contract in its totality will, between what was previously approved and with this change order, will be $47.9 million, of which almost $7.2 million is funded by Colorado Springs Utilities for the water line portion of that work.
Good.
Contract number 4 is for construction management, inspection and material services. Again, we went through an RFP process to get a consultant to provide that service. We had 5 respondents. AECOM was selected. When we put their initial contract in place, we only finalized the cost for the north phase. And this is the ability, now that we've finalized the plans, we're finalizing the construction management costs for the south phase. This change order will be in the amount of $2,180,488. I will just mention, just kind of a side note, I think it came up last month or sometime in the last couple of months about construction management services. In this case, and this is unusually low, but we're paying less than 5% on the construction value for our construction management services, but we're still getting a robust team and services for that. I think when it came up as a discussion before with the board, there's questions about if this 10% is probably being closer to the industry average for those services. I'm going to move on to contract 5 unless there are questions. Okay, contract 5. There's a map in your packet for this particular location. This is for the Beacon Street Railroad crossing upgrades. If anyone's familiar with going on the Pikes Peak Greenway, one of the things you need to do is come up to Beacon Street to get across the railroad tracks and the Van Buren ditch. If you've ever been on a bike, even walking, it's pretty precarious. The railroads approached us about doing some safety improvements in that location. So there's going to be a couple different rounds. This particular contract is for the city's portion of the rail improvements in the amount of up to $123,000 to improve that crossing. The city will also be investing some additional funds for other improvements in that area to help with the drainage and trail connections in that area. Questions there? Okay, contract number 6 is for the Circle Drive Bridge project. Just as a reminder, we did a pre-qualification and an invitation for a bid for this construction project nearly a year ago, for which we had 6 respondents. SEMA Construction was selected. Since that time, we've had a significant delay with the railroad that has pushed off the start of that project. And then we've been working with the contractor. Does it make sense to get started on the work that's in the channel? Thankfully, we decided not to do that, particularly given the rain this year. But we really did more so to change the start of that construction to align better to get the railroad permitting that needs to be finalized and to put pavement and those bridges in a better position. So overall, the delay from the time we awarded the contract to the time we'll start construction is about 16 months. So we've negotiated some change price, very similar as we would at the CMCG process, just based on the time delay and the unit price changes, which they did go through competitive bids to get the unit price suggested. This change order would be in the amount of $3,248,265.76. Questions related to that contract? Okay,
Nope.
Contract 7. This is for the West Fillmore Bridge. I should have put a map in here. I did not. This is near Coronado High School, just directly west of the high school on Fillmore. There is a very deep corrugated metal pipe culvert that's there. We are going to be replacing that with a tunnel. We went through a RFP process. There were 3 respondents. We have selected Native Stone Construction, and their construction value was $2,014,757. The next 4 are maintenance contracts, so I'm going to try to go through those relatively quickly. The first one is for the dig out and patch. It's one of the techniques we use for our street maintenance activities. We went through an RFP process. We had 3 respondents. We're recommending, and the contract was approved to Trax by the board in January. This is approving a task order for the first year in the amount of $350,000. Contract 9 is for our slurry seal maintenance services. We went through an RFP process, and we had 2 respondents. This contract is a base year contract in the amount of $1.4 million, and the city would have 4 option years for that following this with A1 chip seal. Contract 10 is for our chip seal program. This is the 3rd option year. We would be awarding this to A1 or doing a task order to A1 chip seal underneath that contract in the amount of $1,498,062.38. And last but not least, we're exercising the first option year with roadside traffic control for long life pavement marking materials. This would be for a value of up to $600,000 for 2023 striping activities performed by the city. Any questions on any of those 11 contracts?
I don't see any. All right. With that said, I was looking for a motion to approve City of Colorado Springs contracts.
Also move.
I hear a motion.
I'll second John Graham.
All right, and we have a second by Mayor Graham. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. The motion passes. Thank you. Up next, El Paso County, and Josh is with us on Teams. Online. Josh, over to you.
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon. Josh Palmer, El Paso County Engineer. I appreciate the accommodation and understanding. The county has 1 contract to bring before you today for approval. This is a contract for Highway 105 Phase A, which is the segment from the I-25 East off-ramp just up to Lake Woodmore Drive. And this is a contract to Wildcat Construction in the amount of $14,632,972.50. The 50 cents is very important. We went through a IFB process and we received 3 bids. And I think it's worth noting that all 3 bids were within $400,000 of each other, which lends significant amount of confidence that we put out a good bid package. Also, as you'll notice in your packet, in the memo and in the financial information, while the contract itself is for $14,632,000, etc., the PPRTA funds will only be in the amount of 6.65 million. The other 7.982 million are from grants that we received. So the contract is for 14 million, but only 6.65 of that is from our PPRTA budget. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions to Josh?
I will move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Looking for a second.
Well, second, John Graham.
All right, we have a second from Mayor Graham, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any disapproval? No, and so the motion has passed. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
With that, we're moving, that completes item, nope, it doesn't. We got item 9D with the city of Manitou Springs. Mayor Graham, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And actually, we have our city engineer here, Dole Grabenik. I think he was going to speak to this.
I'm sitting in Josh's spot, so.
I see Dole. Yes, I see you on the
Got my
end
own
over
name
there.
tag now, so.
Yes, very good.
As I was introduced, I'm Dole Grabenik, city engineer for Manitou Springs. We have a small contract in front of you. As you guys know, we have a broadband project happening in Manitou. And there were areas within downtown Manitou that had a lot of existing utility ducts. Turns out that there's a gap that we found during our investigation. So this contract allows us to do additional boring to close that gap and then provide conduit connectivity all the way through Manitou along Manitou Avenue.
Sounds good. Any discussion? Looking for a motion to approve. Manitou
Yolanda,
Springs.
move to approve.
Thank you, Director Alba. Looking for a
Holly Williams,
and
second.
Director Williams, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Dole, your motion passes. With that, now we move along to item number 10, member governments and other reports. 10A, City of Colorado Springs, Transit Services Monthly Update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Gail Stewart with City of Colorado Springs, I'd like to introduce to you the city's new transit division manager. I know she's been in the acting role for 10, 11 months, but we're very
Yes.
proud to have her in that role full time. So
Congratulations. Welcome as the permanent.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail, for the introduction. Again, my name is Lan. It is such an honor to have been selected for this position, and I really thank Travis and Gail for their trust in me, and also want to thank this board for your support in the last about 10, 11 months while I was in the acting role, and I really look forward to working with this board more going forward. With that, you have the regular monthly transit update in your packet. I'm gonna skip the detailed ridership on the first couple pages and jump to the year-to-date cumulative information on page number 74. Year-to-date in 2023, we're looking at 72% of ridership back compared to 2019 on the fixed route side and 73% on the ADA side, compared to 53% and 65% same time last year. So the ridership is definitely improving. People are coming back. We're not there yet. As you remember, we are participating in the Zero Fare for Better Air campaign this year again. This year, we are able to participate in this program and offer free fare for both local fixed route and ADA paratransit services for 3 months in June, July, and August. We will be monitoring that ridership very closely. And also, I think one of the questions from last year was, did the ridership stay? So we will continue to monitor that information. Also in your packet, on page 76, was a report, basically a request coming from CTAP last month. Their question was, how does the ridership change or is the ridership affected by the frequency of our service? This is a similar request that we received from the board last year. And based on our analysis, it is difficult to tell on a daily basis there is a direct relationship between ridership and frequency. However, based on the annual information that we did do earlier this year for this sport, we did see some relationship between sustained lower frequency resulting in lower ridership. So I just want to highlight that in this report. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. And again, congratulations on your selection as the.
Thank you,
permanent.
Chair.
And I look around the room, any comments or suggestions? All right, this is just an information brief, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Director Avila.
Thank you, Chair. Lan, did you want to share what we did on for the inaugural? I mean, for our first anniversary for the downtown shuttle?
Yes, thank you. So we were able to celebrate our downtown shuttle ZEP 1 year anniversary on May 22nd. And we had a great participation for that event. And we drove one ZEP bus through a banner. And that was, I believe, one celebration that really stayed with a lot of people.
It was crazy. You know, we've all gone to a lot of ribbon cuttings, right? We use this big old scissors.
Right.
The bus drove right through the banner and opened it up. So
I hope the ribbon didn't damage the bus.
and it's on video. It's really cool. I mean, they had what is it called? Those drones and that showed the picture. So it was super cool. Anyway,
and thanks for being there.
Oh, you're welcome. It was fun. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have one
Yes.
about the terminal annex.
Yeah.
The bus depot terminal annex, is it still under construction now or what?
That project, you mean the downtown transit center project?
That's correct.
That one, the city has selected a contractor to work on the very first phase, and I believe we're in contracting process right now.
So still in engineering then?
Contracting process to sign a contract with the it's
With the architect, so it's very early,
architect.
yes.
Yes, so we have not started the work yet. We're waiting for the signatures from both parties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a.
Yes, go ahead.
So how are we doing on bus drivers? Have they come up? Are we able to go to routes 1 and 27 at 15-minute frequency yet?
We have restored the Route 1 frequency, 15-minute frequency during the weekdays. Sunday is the one we're still struggling for both 1 and 27 on Sunday. Right now they're running 60-minute, but the contractor promised us to restore Route 1 frequency on Sunday to 30 minutes on the 18th. So this coming weekend, we're hoping that's going to happen, but they are still seeing lower level of employees reporting to work. So we're looking at creative ways with the contractor and see, they have brought some drivers from Texas. We're monitoring that closely.
From Texas.
From Texas.
Wow.
And we also have liquidated damage in our contract. We have exercised close to $46,000 for May missed services. We don't want to see that, but hopefully that's it's a way to encourage them to find ways to provide the services we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I think that's it. Thank you very much, Lynn. All right, next up is 10B, review and consider approval of the proposed IGA with Copper Ridge. Obviously, Jim spoke to that from the CAC viewpoint, but now we're going to cover it in our viewpoint. And I think Rick or Jennifer. Or
I think Gail's going to take the lead on
Gail?
this one, and Jennifer will jump in later.
All right.
All right, great. Mr. Chair, Gail, talking about the city of Colorado Springs. I am going to go through the highlights of what's included in this funding agreement and answer questions. But one of the things I think that it's important to talk about upfront that may help alleviate some confusion later on is where how Powers was intended to be funded when we looked at the PPRTA 3 ballot last year. When we were looking at that, we got the construction cost estimate from the developer Copper Ridge Metro District, who would be a party to this funding IGA. at the time, it was myself, Jennifer Irvine, and Bev. We all looked at that. We converted that to a total project cost, and we came up with, well, we should make sure we have up to $140 million available for that project, depending on when it was going to be built, the timing. There was just still some unknowns. We put quite a bit of contingency in there at the time. When we did that, we took, well, how does that make sense to pay for that? We were also looking at what fundings we had were projected to have available at the end of PPRTA 2 or the end of 24. At the time, the city was projecting having well over $25 million towards the end of PPRTA 2 at their allocation. And we were looking at the board reserves and really what was being projected at the end of RTA 2 after the A-list projects were funded. When we looked at that, we thought that it would be between $35 to $40 million could potentially be available at the end of RTA 2 as a pool. So when we planned for RTA 3, we planned for $103 million coming from the city and the county. That's where you talk about the 72 from the city. Sorry, Josh normally sits here. I keep minutes. And the county had $31 million. So that's $103 million. So that's just important for you to kind of understand that history as we enter into this funding agreement. In this IGA, it is an agreement between PPRTA and the Copper Ridge Metro District, with having the city and county board members being significant parties associated with this. As I mentioned, it calls out the city's portion as being the 72 million, the county's portion being 31 million. The thing that I think got confusing for the CAC, and then as Mr. Godfrey was going through it earlier, when the city talks about, and one of the things that's in this IGA is referred to as the Mark Shuffle designation. That is the funds that the city, we've been basically using our PPRTA contingency that we were projecting at the end of RTA 2 to advance Mark Shuffle Road because of our very serious concerns about roadway safety and intersection operations. Right now, we've put about $18.5 million into those programs for the purpose of funding Mark Shuffle Road. Mark Shuffle Road is also an A-list project for PPRTA 3. So since we're advancing that now, we are intending to have some funds carried over from RTA 2 to RTA for the purpose of Powers Boulevard in the future. We feel like it was important for the city to pony up some of that money for Powers Boulevard. So that's where that first $18.5 million. So when you add the city's portion, the county's portion, and this Mark Shuffle designation, you get to $121.5 million. The intent is from this agreement that $121.5 million would be paid out in 1/10 for each year under the PPRTA 3 authorization. So depending on how you look at it, whether it's 103 guaranteed or the 121.5, we're anticipating $12.15 million being available on an annual basis to pay back the cost for Powers Boulevard. And when I talk about the payback, this is where Copper Ridge comes into play. Copper Ridge is the developer out there. They have a metropolitan district that has some taxing authority, that they've already built a portion of Powers Boulevard between I-25 and Voyager. And I'm going to ask my friend Jared here to help that. For those of you who aren't familiar with where this is located, you can see on the screen in front of you that I-25 is on the left-hand side of the screen. Northgate Boulevard is on the very north edge of the screen. And then just slightly down to the top left portion of the screen, you can see where there's an interchange that extends from I-25 to Voyager Parkway. That was a portion of the Powers Boulevard extension that has already been built, and it has been 100% funded by the Copper Ridge Metro District to date. Copper Ridge Metro District is now proposing to advance the construction of Powers Boulevard, which extends from that area there on Voyager, generally through the Flying Horse neighborhood, and connects down at Highway 83, where Powers Boulevard currently dead ends today. This is all referred to as phase 2 construction in this IGA. And this is what Copper Ridge is intending to move forward with. If you guys choose to enter into this IGA, the Copper Ridge Metro District is already planning on meeting with the Colorado Springs City Council, who oversees their bonding capes authority underneath their Metro District, on the 27th. And they would be asking to get the first round of bonds issued to start construction. And they would be starting at that Voyager and Powers interchange and extending that a little bit further to the east and doing that first piece. So how does this reimbursement work? So I'm going to kind of move into that. What the city is going to be taking the lead for reviewing what's going to be a acceptable phase 2 costs. And what does that mean? The PPRTA would only be funding the engineering and construction costs associated with this Powers Boulevard extension. We have been adamant that we would not pay for financing costs, and that means like the origination fees, any kind of interest that would be borne on it. We would only be paying direct costs associated with the engineering and construction to extend this project. The city would be taking the lead to review the statements that would be provided to make sure those are allowed costs. Once those have been approved, then those would be forwarded to PPRTA, where PPRTA would remit the funds directly to the metro districts for the purpose of reimbursing them for these approved costs. If for some reason they're approved costs, since they were planning on starting eminently, like next month, if they can get this funding put in place, they're talking about pulling $17 million to do this first interchange right there at Voyager. That first year of payback in 2025 is only going to have $12.15 million available. It wouldn't be till 2026 that they could even start being paid back funds that could be expended underneath those bonds, but that's 2026 appropriation. I would say the other thing a question came up was about, well, audit, how are we going to know it's doing the right thing, that we're making sure that what we're paying out is what's, approved costs. We made the commitment that because the city is going to be taking the lead on this project, whether we were to do it ourselves or use the Copper Ridge Metro District as the agent to get this work done, that we would anticipate the city auditors would be coming in and stepping in to make sure we would be doing this accounting. One other thing I failed to mention early on is the other $18.5 million. So we talked about the $21.5 million. There is a contemplation that at the end of PPRTA 2, if all A-list projects are completely funded, if there's any reserves left over that come into PPRTA 2, that the board could potentially make those funds available to also fund Powers Boulevard and that extension. Powers Boulevard is a B-list project in the PPRTA 2 ballot. And I think that really highlights that. The one other thing I'll say, that there's anticipated to be a second IGA just directly between the city and the Copper Ridge Metro District for the purpose of overseeing really that procurement process, but really that acceptance of construction into our inventory initially, and then ultimately we would transfer it over to CDOT after the warranty period is complete. But that would be a separate thing. But it's really contemplated that Copper Ridge would be overseeing the engineering construction contracts to oversee all of the Powers Boulevard extension under this phase 2 that Jared so kindly kind of highlighted in blue. And if for some reason there was any kind of default or fundings left over, issues, that the city could step in and complete the project. So that's really kind of an overview of what's in the IGA. And I think now, unless Jennifer, you want to add anything, it would be good to see if there's questions that maybe we can explain.
Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Mayor Dixon.
Green Mountain Falls borrowed against our future revenues on RTA to do the Stilling Basin. Is this more like a payback over time versus just borrowing from your future revenues? Or am I missing something?
I believe that Green Mountain Falls borrowed from the board's capital reserve, so it's cash in the bank that you borrowed and you're going to pay back.
Okay, but we're basically taking zero for like 2024 or something.
So this is uncollected sales tax revenue.
Yeah, this is different. I mean, that's sort of, and we're using the term borrowed here very loosely. I mean, you sort of were advanced money out of, projected future years. Here, what we're talking about is sales tax revenue will be collected from PPRTA 3 in the years 2025 and going forward. And so the board would be agreeing, to the extent that those revenues are received, to consider appropriations to repay costs that have been incurred. So.
Okay.
Not apples and oranges kind of in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will mention too, that if you're getting the project completed now all at once, a couple of years in advance where you'd have $1, there is a significant time value of money savings associated with this.
Okay, thanks.
You might explain, maybe you did about the bonding, about Copper Ridge. They're going to be going out for bonds to actually do this.
Yeah, so the Copper Ridge Metropolitan District, part of their pledged revenue for the bonds that they're trying to sell this summer would be this future promise, if you will, of the PPRTA to consider making these allocations and appropriations in future years to repay for actual costs. So they're going to issue bonds this year. That's what's projected. They'll utilize the cash proceeds of those bonds to construct the project, hopefully starting as soon as the summer. And then the PPRTA board would in those future years pay over as a reimbursement sales and use taxes collected from PPRTA 3. Copper Ridge would then be using those revenues to pay off its bonds is sort of the financial flow there.
Other questions? Yeah. Director
This is
Avila.
information, right? We're not. We're
This
voting
is a
on it?
vote. This is
Okay.
for a vote.
Okay, so I'd like clarity on the using PPRTA 2 monies for the B list on the powers, for the powers extension. So are we voting on that's where what we're gonna do is use that money, PPRTA 2 money for that right now? Where are we voting on that?
No, so the way that the agreement is drafted, the agreement states that we're currently still on A-list projects. We haven't completed the A-list. It contemplates that the PPRTA is projecting to finish the A-list and move into the B-list at some point before PPRTA 2 ends. And that at that point, that when the PPRTA makes the determination that it has completed the A-list and moves to the B-list, that this board is committing to consider what, if any, funds is going to dedicate to the Powers Boulevard project. And it does state in here that is projected to be possibly be $18.5 million if things go as our crystal ball currently reads. But it's not a commitment today. The board would be making that at a future date.
Okay, but
Gail, jump in if I misstated that in my legalese manner.
I think it's me. I mean, this is all a little bit confusing, but could we at the same time look at all the projects on the B list? What are the other board members say? Well, the powers extension is really important. However, these other B projects are just as important. Are we already have this like pigeonholed into accepting the extension at Powers? That's my question. Once everything so funding goes through, everything's done, and now it's okay, we're going to start on the B list. Do we have to start with the Powers, or can the board decide maybe on a different B list project?
The board can decide on a different B list project. So what the board would be committing to if they were to approve this agreement is that of PPRTA 3, it's going to dedicate 1/10 of the $103 million every year for a 10-year period to repayment. That's PPRTA $3. In addition, there's the 18.5 that Gail was discussing that might be allocated from PPRTA 3 from other projects of the city. That's not determined at this point. The 18.5 million that might be from PPRTA 2 is also not determined today by this agreement. This agreement just recognizes that it's possible that $18.5 million might be available, and that if it is available, this board will make a determination about which, if any, B-list projects it's moving forward with.
Well, it seems that's the only one we're talking about, so I just want to make it clear that we can consider any and all, well.
I'll jump in here too, Yolanda. I asked the very same question because I too do not want to commit to any B project at this point in time. I don't think that's the right thing to do, and I'm satisfied that this IGA does not say that.
Yeah, I can
Wasn't
read you the
committed to it.
exact language, so just for your comfort. The
I,
project,
I'm just
Yeah.
concerned because we're naming it right now, and instead of just saying to the next speed project that the board decides on, we're already naming it. So, and it's like, we're already going in a certain direction. That's my only concern. I hear that we're not committed to it, but I just want to
No.
be clear on it.
no, I can assure you that I also wanted to make sure we were clear on that. It says, once priority A projects of the PPRT authorization have been completely funded, it is possible that up to 18.5 million will be available to fund phase 2. I'm paraphrasing here. Accordingly, at that same time or at the next budget amendment meeting thereafter, the board will determine that at which the board determines the funding of all A-list projects has been complete. The board shall also determine the amounts, if any, available for funding of phase 2 from the PPRTA 2 authorization. In the event that a determination is made that PPRTA 2 authorization is available to fund phase 2, the total of funding amount, the city portion and the county portion shall correspondingly increase. So the reason we're only talking about Powers Boulevard in the context of this IGA is because it only deals with Powers Boulevard. But the board is not locked into making a decision for how PPRTA 2 funds will be utilized if we get to the B list.
Mr. I want to clarify on that. I'm not an attorney, but it says if the board determines it is available, it is available to fund phase 2, the total funding amount, the city portion and county portion shall each increase. A shall is definitive in legalese, is it not?
Yes, but it's in the event that a determination is made that PPRT authorization is available to fund phase 2. So first, this board,
Available, not voted on. So if we say there's $1 available to fund phase 2, then it shall increase.
right, it ties to the previous determination though of how the funding is going to be utilized. But I'm
So-
happy to make further clarifications. I mean, the intent of all parties, and we discussed this among the legal counsel for the various parties. The clear intent of the parties, and again, happy to make adjustments. but the
And
clear-
why does it say county? Why would the county's share increase of the 31,000?
That I would, I'm.
Because I would be asking that the statement county shall increase, county be removed from this document on that, in that sentence.
Well, we've been reviewing this Powers Boulevard extension as a regional collaborative project with the city and county, and how we have split the budget responsibilities have been based on our population share, which is roughly a 70-30 split. So that would be the continuation. If, let's say, for an example, there was just 10 million, I'm going to use easy round numbers, $10 million of PPRTA due funds available at the end that could be allocated to the city and county. And if we chose based on the board of directors prioritization for B-list projects, we would take that $10 million and we'd split it and say that the county would be committing $3 million, the city would be committing $7 million to provide that $10 million towards the Powers Boulevard reimbursement.
Okay, I get that. But in this case, if the city decides to spend 7 million, the shall forces the county to pay 3 million. So that's my concern, is a decision made by the city shall force the increase on the county side. The shall is the part that I have concerns with versus saying, oh, we voluntarily believe this is appropriate. We'll match your 7 with our 3. The way I read this is you will force our hand if you guys decide to move forward with an increase.
Well, and I would say there's no direct allocation with any funds that come out of what's left over after the A-list is funded. It gets up to the board to help set the prioritization. Obviously, you get recommendations from staff. But let's say the board says we want to have $5 million split evenly amongst the 6-member governments, and we want the other $5 million to go towards Powers Boulevard. That $5 million would go to Powers Boulevard, but in theory, the way this is written, the county would get credit for 30% of that. The city would get credit for 70% of that.
Can I just ask, so the 2 A-list projects left with the city are Academy Boulevard and Mark Sheppel, right?
We have more than 2.
Okay. The big 2, how does that sound?
Right, well, we have some others that are going to be coming with some other big projects, like the Fontanero Bridge replacement. I'm not sure what the question is. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then I know the county's last two A-lists are Beacon Light and Highway 105
And Eastonville.
and Eastonville. Thank you.
Yes. So Josh.
Yep, okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
thanks,
Jones.
Mr. President. And just to clarify, our legal counsel is giving us her interpretation, her understanding of everyone's intention that we are not, if we approve this today, we're not committing to, we're not obligating any excess funds above the A list to do this. We're simply saying that if the money is there, it may be used for this. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that money, it would be split in a 70-30 split between the city and the county, whatever is dedicated, correct? Or be credited.
It could be, right. It's going to be based on the direction from the board, but that's the theory when it talks about that sentence about the city portion and the county portion in this section 5.
And then I would just add that, we hear from constituents quite often, about issues with east-west traffic flow in the city of Colorado Springs. And this is it's a very important valve to relieve some of that so that they can flow north and get on the highway that way more efficiently. So I think it would be, it's extremely important. I'm happy to see this moving forward. And I think it's important just to realize that today we aren't committing to using money for this, but we're stating that is a possibility.
And again, I will just, my concern with the statement of this county in that last sentence, this potentially, before this has even gotten kicked off, potentially committing the county to increasing our share of this before we even started on PPRTA 3. That concerns me.
Commissioner
And all
Gonzalez.
I'm asking is that one change be made, that in that last sentence, county be removed. If we increase it, we vote to increase it. But I don't want something that looks like it will mandatorily force an increase on the county.
Can you tell me what page and what paragraph you're referring
Page
to?
86, top paragraph. The last full sentence. In the event that a determination is made that PPRTA 2 authorization is available, not voted on, is available to fund phase 2, the total funding amount, and we've been listed at 31,000 previous. The city portion and the county portion shall each correspondingly increase. I'm just thinking this potentially ties the county to an increase, mandatory increase.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't it because the city and the county they came together as a 70-30?
Right. Well, and I will say the 70-30 has been kind of the rough split.
Yes.
What is throwing us off, I think, is maybe these words are defined in other portions of the document where it's capitalized city portion and county portion. Because those are defined with set amounts in the definitions. That's where the 72 million and the 31 million are defined. What this is saying is if there's PPRTA 2, not 3, but PPRTA funds left over after the A-list is completely funded, if the board prioritizes the Powers Boulevard extension, then those portions, the city portion and the county portion by the definition in this IGA are increased based on through those definitions.
Again, these are all based on estimates of the cost of the project. How does the estimated cost of the project go up because we have available funds? There's an estimated cost to building the project, whether it's a PPRTA 2 or PPRTA 3. So if the estimated cost is $103 million and that's where our share is, but now we have available funds, so we're going to give more money. So you're saying the estimated cost of the project went up? I mean, how does that money just go from 103 to 128 in terms of how much we should be deciding to spend to the project?
When we first were looking at the project was $140 million project. We came up with a funding plan. And because we didn't want to put too much of a burden on RTA 3 and we were projecting monies at the end of RTA 2, we put together a consolidated plan with funding from both 10-year authorizations. So it would be B listed from RTA 2. If it was available at the end, could go to help fund it. And if it was a PPRTA 3 A list. The one thing would be nice for us, again, we came up with $140 million based on the cost estimate we had for construction in 2022. If the city or county took the lead on this project to actually build up enough money, we would be doing this project 8 to 10 years from now. And that's where we projected an increased cost. That's where that $140 million came from. That's not what the developer's cost estimate is, but that's what we thought the project would likely cost us if we had to undertake it. Now that Copper Ridge Metro District wants to advance it, they will have better cost estimates. They're going to be peeling the bonds off in chunks as they go through construction. They're already going to be coming to city council to request, it's either 17 or $20 million worth of bonds to start with underneath this, but this is one of the payback mechanisms so they can do the interchange at Voyager and Powers. And they need to actually continue the engineering. The engineering is only 30% complete for their down to Highway 83.
Just a little bit different of a question. In the city, is a metro district both sales tax and property tax, or is it just sales tax?
Well, in this case, I believe this one is sales tax, but it could be both. My understanding is, from what I've read, is that the payback from the Metro District portion is sales tax based on their taxing authority in the public improvement district that they have included as part of their Metro District.
Okay.
Any other concerns or questions? With that, I will ask for a motion to.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I got another question.
sure.
So is the Hancock Expressway a project B list for for PPRTA 2?
I believe it is a B list.
All right. And again, as was brought up, as we start moving forward on deciding how to spend excess money, again, this was a commitment by the city to pay for it. The county is giving urban renewal dollars. I protested this several months ago. So we wouldn't even get to the B list. It wouldn't be available money. Now we have available money that everybody's committing to something else. And everybody knows I've been very passionate about this because I feel I was, misled in some ways several months ago. So this is a continuation of that. And I'm very still concerned about some of those discussions. And I think everybody understands them. Hope they respect my concerns on how we did that. I still feel the county was cheated into spending more money on the Hancock Expressway, a commitment by the city that this county is helping pay for. Okay, that might be some of my concerns and issues here, but they're relevant and they were accurate. And that's why it concerns me when I see stuff that may come back to bite the county in the future.
If I may,
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to bore the board members to death with my legal facts yet. Gail gave you a great overview of, from a practical standpoint. I did just want to point out, all joking aside, a couple of items, because this is a new type of agreement. And we did discuss this at some previous meetings as well. But the PPRTA doesn't have any debt authorization. This is not a debt. The pledge or the commitment that's provided in this agreement is subject to the availability of funds. And it's subject to the appropriations by future boards on an annual basis. It is a commitment. We're agreeing to make those determinations and consider those determinations and put that in part of the budgeting process for the boards to consider. But it is not a debt. And I just want to make that completely clear. It's completely clear to Copper Ridge, the city, the county. But since we have no debt authorization, this is not a multi-fiscal year financial obligation. We don't need voter approval for it. It is a contingent obligation of the PPRTA. And so I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. I also just wanted to mention to the board, if they're so inclined today to provide an approval of the agreement, that this is still being presented to the city council and to the county board of county commissioners. And it's also under final review within my office. There might be a requirement that we provide an enforceability opinion because bonds are being issued by the Metro District as part of this. And so that does require the shareholders in my group to sign off on it. So there might be some final, my point of all of these comments is that there might be some final tweaks to this agreement based on considerations by the city, the county, or further review from my office. I also think it would be appropriate to Commissioner Gonzalez's point to just make crystal clear in 5A that this is not a commitment to spend any PPRTA2 funds. Well, I think that's what the language states. If reasonable minds disagreed, there's no reason that we shouldn't make that crystal clear. And so I would suggest a revision back to the group to just make that 100% clear. And so if the board was going to provide an approval today, I would ask that that be made subject to final revisions. And if there's any material changes that you'd be requesting me to bring that back to your July meeting.
I think I heard something along the lines that if we approve it with the language you just said. Is that what I understand?
Yeah.
Councilmember Donaldson.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve this, subject to these final revisions, which we have just discussed.
Thank you for the motion. I look for a second.
I can second that. Can I amend it to state what your language just was? And I've written down at the end of paragraph 5A, amending it saying this is not a commitment to prioritize Powers Boulevard North in remaining funds. Is that how we would say that?
I'm sure that we'll find a much more complicated way to say it since we have 4 lawyers working on this, but yes, that is the effective language.
Okay, because I would amend it with the provision that this is not a commitment as to how the board will prioritize B-list projects.
Yeah, that would be the essence of that, yes.
Okay. If
Okay.
that's okay for a friendly amendment, sir.
That is okay.
All right.
All right, I'm looking for a second.
That was a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Second.
So I amended his,
It's been-
yeah, I amended his
Yes.
motion. Sorry to
Okay.
confuse you.
We have a motion and a second. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have one nay.
1, 2,
1, 2, 3, 4,
6
5,
to 1.
6, 7 to 1. That passes.
yeah.
And one absent or abstain. I'm not sure the term to use for Commissioner Gonzalez. Okay. Did we do that right? And did it pass?
And do we have a quorum?
Yeah, we do have. a
Okay.
quorum.
We have a lot of questions right now.
4, 5, 6, 7. We do have a quorum.
Well, that's why I voted nay, because there seems to be not very much clarity here. There's a lot of questions going on here. Okay, so.
Well, I meant I just have a lot of questions. I want to make sure we still have a quorum with Commissioner Gonzalez having lots.
I don't know, but I'm thinking he intentionally did that, so he did not have to vote, but I have no way of knowing that.
Can we take a restroom break while she's?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right,
That was
we
phenomenal.
will recess.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need 6 bodies. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bodies.
Would you like to vote or? Nope, okay.
I don't.
I actually
count.
interpreted that and we took the vote.
Right.
But we're now.
I told my team yesterday, I didn't want it to be a split vote. No problems making the comment. I didn't want to split vote. I didn't.
I know a lot about this. And it's in my.
No, I leave the language though, that it says will increase their proportion. I was like, and I get is the share, well, it's the share, ours goes up, yours goes up. No, but that. But were you gonna point?
Doesn't that just mean that like if PPRT,
No, but
if we vote,
But it could be a 7-3 vote and you force the county to do it. I mean, that wouldn't happen. I'm just telling you, I don't like it because they
No, I'm not trying to get the Bob back together. There is a hard thing to do.
So, PPRTA board members, please start making their way back to their seats so we can resume the meeting.
So see you next year.
Yeah, we did. Oh.
All right, let's see if we can get the directors all back in their seats. We will rock and roll through this.
Should have just walked out.
Getting everybody back.
Okay. What's next, John?
She's perking.
Oh, that'll be nice. Maybe we got the feistiness out of this already. Stuff.
Looks like we're just missing the mayor pro tem, but we'll go ahead. Oh, there is. Yep, he's getting the good stuff. All right, we will come out of recess and continue with our meeting. I will start off by saying I was given the official tally, if you remember the way the voting goes. So in favor of 5.5 versus not 0.75. So that was the one vote against there. So that it does pass. So that motion does pass the IGA, and we will continue in the process of then going out to the different entities that would then try to get that to before the different entities to pass. Okay, let me catch up here and see where we were at on that. I think that was 10 Bravo, 10B. Yes. 10C, City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is an informational item. The change order log is available in your packet. There was not a real estate transactions to report.
Correct. All right. No questions of that. We'll move on to 10 Delta, quarterly reports from member governments for information.
These are the quarterly reports from the 6 member governments of what they've accomplished in the first quarter of 2023. And is what I will use for my drive around windshield confirmation.
Roger that. Any questions or concerns on that? I see none. Moving to 10 Echo. Letter of support funding commitment for City of Colorado Springs for the DCIP grant application. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Gail Sturdivant, City of Colorado Springs. The city is pursuing another grant opportunity to fund the Peterson Space Force Base North Gate Access and Safety Improvements Project. This would be the third tranche of federal funding that's being sought for this project. PPACG actually sought a grant initially. Actually, it was the same kind of grant. It's the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program for preliminary engineering and NEPA work. The city has been acting as a partner with PPACG and the county and CDOT on that effort and been administering that grant and have completed that work. We also went and pursued congressionally directed spending, which we received to finalize engineering for that project. Now we're going to be pursuing Construction funds. So we're going back to that same DCIP program that's overseen by the Department of Defense and seeking funds. I think we determined on Monday, we're going to be seeking a total project cost of $15 million. One of the things I need is a funding commitment for the local match. There's a 30% local match requirement. The city intends to have that local match through our intersection improvements program. So with a funding amount of anticipated funding amount of $4.5 million. I have provided a draft letter of support for your convenience, but I'm also available to answer questions but thank you for your support in advance.
Any concerns or questions for this? We will vote for approval of this. Okay, I don't see any. I'll look for a motion to approve the letter of support and funding commitment.
Director Williams, so moved.
I second it.
Okay, she beat you out there, Roland. So
No. Okay.
Commissioner Williams and Councilwoman Avila seconded it. So I was watching you, Yolanda.
Oh.
You did.
No, I didn't beat him out. Well, okay.
You were trying.
Thank you.
Ladies first.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. But I do have yes.
Could I make one
Yes,
comment?
absolutely.
That even though today is the 248th anniversary of the United States Army, and even though all this money will help out the Air Force, I will support it.
It's actually this. I wish it was the Air Force. It's the Space Force. I'm sorry to say they changed.
It's a flag day.
Even worse.
It is flag. That's right. You're both correct. The United States Army and Flag Day. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a good. Dave had a very nice flag setting at his at the dais yesterday. So I do have a comment on that, Gail. So I do. I have a request actually after we've passed it. I'm very concerned that all this money is going to go, which I trust and want it to the North Gate. My concern is how do we get Peterson Space Force Base now to keep that gate open? So the gate seems closed all the time. Not that that's your responsibility or anything. I just want to put that in a record that.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. Obviously these improvements would help them be able to keep that open. And they have a companion project on the base that would actually help with that entrance feature that they need to have. And there's some force security concerns, which is what.
That's always their answer.
Right.
I've had to say that myself.
I was on that base for a year.
Yes, yes. But as you know, then the North Gate is closed a lot. So anyway, thank you with that. We'll move along to item 11. And 11A is, let's see, I did do that. 11A is City of Manitou Springs proposal for revenue allocation adjustment. And Mayor, is that it's over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I think you all remember at last month's meeting, I had expressed some concerns about the way the allocations have been made. City of Manitou Springs had we'd gone back and reviewed what we had paid in PPRTA taxes over the 18 years of our participation and what we'd gotten out. And in looking at it, we felt that we had received considerably less, and that typically there were 3 years when Manitou got more than we put in 15 years when we didn't. So the consequence of that was we had a fairly disappointed city council. In the subsequent weeks, we've met with representatives from Colorado Springs, from El Paso County, and I've talked to the mayors of the smaller communities, and PPRTA did craft a proposal, which is it's on page 198 of the packet, and that was presented by PPRTA representatives last night to Manitou Springs City Council. We had Rick, Andy, Lisa, and Jim Godfrey. They did a really excellent job in presenting the information. We had a good discussion, and the Manitou Springs City Council's direction was that we're very pleased with the proposal. We would be happy to accept it. I can go perhaps into a little more detail if anyone cares, but that's the short story.
Director Avila. I thought you. Oh, you okay? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, actually, the work was pretty much everybody else in the room did the heavy lifting. So I want to thank Rick, Andy, Lisa, and Jim, and my Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune represented City of Manitou as well. We had Gail and Travis from City of Colorado Springs did a great job, and also allow. So thank you.
With that, the floor is open. I don't know if do we need any further discussion? Rick, go ahead.
Certainly have whatever discussion you'd like, but at some point, since this proposal that was formulated from the PPRTA board via individual conversation, so it was informal, we would need a formal approval at some point.
Oh, yes, right. Yes.
But certainly have any discussion you'd like.
So the floor is open, and Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question would be, because she's not here, I know that Commissioner Geithner had been greatly involved in this. I just want to make sure that this was the version that she had given support to before
I can confirm that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she and I worked closely together on this, and as a matter of fact, during the agenda prep today, I think everyone can attest that I actually I recognized that, and I complimented her and the county commissioners for coming up with this detailed piece. Yes, that's right. So, any other discussion points on this? I don't see any. With that, I ask for a motion to approve the Manitou Springs proposal.
Mayor Pro Tem asks for approval.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? The motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right, moving along. City of Fountain's request to join PPRTA. Rick?
So as the board is aware, City of Fountain has spent quite a bit of time this year on taking a serious look at the possibility of joining the PPRTA. They've hired a consultant to do a scientific random poll of their populace, and it came back positive for joining. They recently approved a resolution that's in your packet saying, requesting to this board and to this board's 6-member governments that they be approved to join. And the attached resolution that your attorney Jennifer Ivey has prepared is virtually identical to the one that was used when Calhan joined and Rama joined. And it commits to the major task is it commits to referring out to the 6-member government governing bodies Fountain's request to join, because pursuant to the IGA between the 6-member governments, all 6-member governments have to give the thumbs up by a majority vote of each of the 6-member government governing bodies for a new member to join. So approving this resolution will then authorize me to send out to the key staff members, the board members of all 6-member governments, the staff members of all 6-member governments, the attorneys of all 6-member governments, this referral asking each of the 6-member governing bodies to agendize a vote sometime between tomorrow and August 2 to report back what the results of your 6-member government governing bodies vote relative to Fountain joining. There may be a City of Fountain representative in the audience. And if he or she, due to the, if she would like to speak, Mr. Chair, it's probably appropriate if you want to invite her to speak.
I do. I see her. Oh, she's reading something right. Oh, there we are. Welcome. Come on up. Mayor, welcome.
I don't know if we have a seat for her on Mayor's Row.
Yeah. Mayor, welcome, Mayor.
Thank you. I really didn't come prepared, but I really appreciate you considering this. This has been a great discussion in our community members for a long time. We really see the regional efforts for roads. I mean, if y'all saw Peaceful Valley in our city on the news in the last couple of days, that would definitely be a regional project, you know, that we would look forward to considering. But the maintenance dollars is definitely something that would help us within our city. And so we really ask that y'all do it as soon as you can, because August sounds a really long ways away. If we decided to put this on the ballot, we do need time to mount a campaign that really needs to kick off very, very soon.
In the
So,
you're talking about the November ballot.
yeah,
Yeah.
this year's November ballot, right? Yeah.
Any questions?
I do have a question for Rick. So how does the voting work then? Because we've got the 4 smaller cities each get a quarter of a vote now? Or help?
0.75,
0.75.
0.75.
Okay,
And per the current IGA, if Fountain joins, then Fountain, Manitou, Green Mountain Falls, Rama, and Cowhan would have to split 3 votes. So the 0.75s would drop to 0.6s. And Fountain is aware of this, and I'm fairly certain they're okay with that.
Oh, we'd like a whole vote, but we'll go with what we can get.
0.6 is higher than 0, but
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
okay. That was just it.
Another point to share is that there'd be two ballots. First, Fountain this November would go to their voters to join. If that's successful, then Fountain would be in starting January 1st of 24. They would get maintenance money for that budget year. Then we, this board, would go to all the PPRTA voters, including the Fountain voters, in November. Did I say 24? They would go in 23, we would go in 24. Sorry. So then in November 24, PPRTA, this board would go to all the PPRTA voters, including the Fountain voters, to add their capital projects that they would submit to us in the spring or summer of 24. And that would be a November of 24 ballot. And then they would start getting capital in January of 25. Sorry, I got confused on my years.
We're aware of all that. We understand that timeline.
Right.
And the first election is paid for by Fountain.
Yes.
And then the second election, we negotiate
split,
next year.
And we split.
Oh, we split it.
Cost.
Okay, got it.
It's negotiable.
Yeah. But it's like everything else, where depending on who's all in the voting. Okay. Any other questions for the mayor?
Well, I will move approval of the resolution. I am the stack representative for PPACG, so I'm all about regionalism.
So we have a motion. Second.
And Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Sharon.
Yes.
It was a question that one of our city council members raised, I think it was maybe just yesterday. And hey, Fountain had a chance to come into PPRTA. How long ago was it? 10? Was it
in 04, November of 04?
Was there something even more recent than that where they?
Well, there's been 2 times that Fountain has had the opportunity to join in previous councils, and mayors at that time decided not to put it on the ballot.
And this member of Colorado Springs City Council is like, hey, they didn't want to do it. Why are we doing it now? What would your reply to that be? And I will
Right.
pass the information.
So the city of Fountain, for whatever reasons, right, previous councils didn't want to put it on. That was there. I mean, I have theories, but it's just my theory, and I don't know for sure, right? When we annexed the Vinatucci area into Walmart, we built the Sam's Club in the Walmart that is part of the RTA boundary. And we estimate we are losing $1.2 to $1.5 million worth of tax dollars from that area right there to RTA, and getting absolutely no benefit from it. And we would love to get a portion of those maintenance dollars back to our community to begin using those for our maintenance dollars. And then just looking at the bridge that you all saw on the news the other day, the area that needs the bridge at Peaceful Valley, 3 years ago, the estimate on that was $2 to $3 million to fix that bridge. And of course, it's probably much higher by now. And that effectively cuts off 100 homes back in that area that are on the county and the city. And that road is part county and part city. So there isn't any way that, we're really going to be able to do that project effectively. Now, I'm assuming that the council would vote or you guys would approve to put that on. I'm just giving you that as one example, right? And, but like all of you, our roads are in poor condition in some areas and getting worse. And, we're just looking for a way to do that. We're already paying into it. Every time a lot of our people shop up there, we're paying into it and you guys are reaping the benefit of it. So we would just like to get in on, get some of that dollars back to our community.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor. I'll be able to tell him I asked, and
Mhm.
I'm sure you and he will get a chance to talk.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't, we didn't vote in second, so with that, any other discussion? I see none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have none. The motion passes, and next step is to take it to our individual entities, and that will happen. And we've had this, I recall when Callahan was up and Gail and others presented that in front of us, and we voted Callahan in. So like you said, it'd be the same process on that.
It's already scheduled, Mr. Chair.
Right. Thank you.
And this one, when the county agendizes it, we will make sure that Mayor Thompson knows. So
Yeah, we would.
if you
yes.
expect your council members to have questions and when you agendize it, if you could just let Rick know so that we could let Mayor Thompson know.
Absolutely. Invite her to be at the podium. All right. With that said, by the way, I got critiqued by my spouse yesterday for saying that constantly at the, it just reminded me when I just said that. She critiqued me when I got home last night. And 11 Charlie, draft of board policy number 33. It says approval on there, but I think we already discussed earlier that we're not ready for that. Do we want to have any further discussion of that, Rick?
I'd suggest a motion to table.
Okay.
I move to table this until the CAC can review it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There is none. That motion is approved. We will not have an executive session today. And if you do have any questions, Jennifer's online. She has to be in Aurora, so she gets to fight all the traffic getting up to Aurora now, but she is online if you have any questions, but we will not have an executive session. I'm looking around the room, going across for item 13, PPRTA member announcements. I'll start on the left with Commissioner Gonzalez. No. Mayor's row.
Thank you. I would again like to thank the PPRTA staff and others for their involvement coming up with a solution that addressed Manitou's concerns. We appreciate that very much.
My pro tem Ron Gardine, Town of Callahan, July 14th. How many people here like to dance? We're gonna have two bands coming out there, man. They're gonna get it on. So we're inviting you guys to come out for the Summer Fest.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got 27 vendors so far, and we got a lot more people coming on, but we have a lot of different activities for kids, for regular people, and for old people like me.
I like the old people.
Yeah.
Piece.
Okay. But anyhow, you're cordially welcome and invited men to come out on July 14th.
Thank you, Roland. Mayor?
And in Green Mountain Falls on beginning June 30th, we have our Green Box events starting. They are an independent organization and they bring in a lot of arts and culture, including some professional dancers. Like, yes, that was last year. Yep. I'm not sure who they have this year. But yeah.
All right, I'll jump over here and then I'll come back to Councilwoman Pablo. Anything PPRTA wise?
Well, I think most of the people on PPRTA are, we just had a moment of silence this morning for
Yes.
Stephanie Fortune, who passed away yesterday in the morning. So we'll be doing something at City Council to memorial or have a somewhat
A
of memorial-
remembrance.
A remembrance. So when that gets out, we'll let you know.
Yes. All right,
Nothing else. Then.
thank you.
4th of July activities for Independence Day. We'll have the Monument Parade. We will also have the Colorado Springs Symphony and the fireworks downtown. And so that's, if you're in town, that's, or maybe the fireworks are done by the sports corps everywhere. But I know we got invited to the Philharmonic. It's Sports Corp. It's not the Sports Corporation, it's the Sports Corp.
Thank you. Anything before I do my comments, anything else, Lisa, Rick, Andy, Joel? Yes. Oh, you had something
Yeah.
additional, Roland? Yes. Go
Can't
ahead.
believe the county commissioner didn't talk about the county fair in July 15th. Hello,
That's next month. I get away with that one. Yep. I can't remember even what the theme is this year yet.
Why not, we're doing a ribbon cutting. That'll be good. Okay, nice. New bonds for the animal.
Yeah.
And new wheelbarrows.
Item, you'll likely get an email about this. We are trying to plan a ribbon cutting. I'm sorry, not a ribbon cutting, a groundbreaking for the Mark Shuffle Road project. And I'm anticipating it being sometime in July, and it may be before your next board meeting.
Good. That would
Stay
be great.
tuned.
Thank you.
Make sure I get that email.
Yeah. All right.
I
Couple,
should say-
yeah. Sorry.
Just the last thing, I think now officially school is out and Highway 105 has started. And we're just happy that it started. No groundbreaking necessary.
All right, thank you. Yes, a couple of things, and on a somber note, meant to start it off with this, but and thank you to Councilmember Avila for mentioning Stephanie. So one of our dear colleagues and friends, who I think we all know, Stephanie Fortune, passed away early yesterday morning from her battle with leukemia, and we send out our condolences to her husband Kent, her family and friends. She was a world-class citizen for the city of Colorado Springs and for the state. And we miss her tremendously. And I just want to say that we will be doing a remembrance. I'm working on the date. And I haven't been able to talk to the fellow council members yet, but I'd like to look at it on Monday, the 26th of June, our work session. There's next work session. So, and I'll send that out to see and get feedback from everyone to see if that's the right time. So with that, I wanted to say that for our dear colleague and friend. And on that note, I'll stop there and remind people a week from today on June 21st at 5:30 in the morning, downtown Colorado Springs is a Western Street breakfast. And Carrie and I stayed on our horses last week when we were given a speech. You stayed on yours last year, so yeah. So come out from 5:30 to 0900, 9 o'clock in the morning on the 21st of June. We'll do the Western Street breakfast, and then of course the rodeo in July, 11th through the 15th. So with that, I will end and adjourn our PPRTA meeting.